I found my wife changed when I met her at Tiruvannamalai after 4 years. She had been mature in character before, but now she was mature in understanding also. She no longer asked for explanations, but gave them. And as she was explaining the same truths in different idiom, that of Bhagavan instead of that of Gwenon, it took me some time to adjust myself. Bhagavan did not immediately reveal himself to me. I felt far less from his bodily presence than I had from his invisible support while in the internment camp. His photograph had been more real and vivid to me than any person, and yet now that I saw him face to face, I felt his presence much less. This did not unduly worry me. It seemed merely a confirmation of what I had been told, that he was not a guru. I will give my impressions as I wrote them down at a time when they were fresher in my mind. This is what I wrote at the time. I entered the ashram hall on the morning of my arrival, before Bhagavan had returned from his daily walk on the hill. I was a little awed to find how small it was and how close to him I should be sitting. I had expected something grander and less intimate. And then he entered, and to my surprise, there was no great impression. Certainly far less than his photograph had made. Just a white-haired, very gracious man, walking a little stiffly from rheumatism and with a slight stoop. As soon as he had eased himself onto the couch, he smiled at me and then turned to those around and to my young son and said, "So, Adam's prayer has been answered. His daddy has come back safely." I felt his kindness, but no more. I appreciated that it was for my sake that he had spoken English, since Adam knew Tamil. The change came a few weeks later at one of the big festivals of the ashram year. There were huge crowds for the festival, and we were sitting in the courtyard outside the hall. Bhagavan was reclining on his couch, and I was sitting in the front row before it. He sat up, facing me, and his narrowed eyes pierced into me, penetrating, intimate, with an intensity I cannot describe. It was as though they said, "You have been told, why have you not realized?" And then quietness, a depth of peace, an indescribable lightness and happiness. Thereafter, love for Bhagavan began to grow in my heart, and I felt his power and beauty. The next morning, for the first time, sitting before him in the hall, I tried to follow his teaching by using the vichara, "Who am I?" I thought it was I who had decided. I did not at first realize that it was the initiation by look that had vitalized me and changed my attitude of mind. Indeed, I had only heard vaguely of this initiation and paid little heed to what I had heard. Only later did I learn that other devotees also had had such an experience, and that with them also it had marked the beginning of active sadhana, the true quest, under Bhagavan's guidance. Then, for the first time in my life, I began to understand what the grace and blessing of the Guru could mean. My love and devotion to Bhagavan deepened. I went about with a lilt of happiness in my heart, feeling the blessing and mystery of the Guru, repeating like a song of love that he was the Guru, the link between heaven and earth, between God and me, between the formless being and my heart. I became aware of the enormous grace of his presence. Even outwardly, he was gracious to me, smiling when I entered the hall, signing to me to sit where he could watch me in meditation. However, with the Sadguru, the divine Guru, this simple, idyllic state could not long continue. Although the devotion never diminished, it had merged with understanding. And then one day, a vivid reminder awoke in me that the link with formless being, is the thought that came. But he is the formless being. And I began to apprehend the meaning of his jnana and to understand why devotees addressed him simply as Bhagavan, which is a name for God. I should have said a word meaning God. So he began to prove in me what he declared in his teaching, that the outer guru serves to awaken the guru in the heart. The vichara, the self-inquiry, the constant who am I, began to awaken an awareness of the self, as Bhagavan outwardly and also simultaneously of the self within. The specious theory that Bhagavan was not a guru had simply evaporated in the radiance of his grace. Moreover, I now perceive that far from his teaching not being practical guidance, it was exclusively that. I observed that he shunned theoretical explanations and kept turning the questioner to practical considerations of sadhana, of the path to be followed. It was that and only that he was here to teach.